It's been a very dark few weeks for the Cherry clan. Many of you might have read in social media or in the newspaper that my beloved sister Cindy passed away about 2 weeks ago, very suddenly. We'd like to thank everybody for their thoughts and prayers that have been sent. And some of you might not know the story between Cindy and I. When I was young, I had some health issues and my kidneys failed. And Cindy, at 18 years old, donated her kidney to me. And literally only by the grace of God and Cindy that I am alive today. I know she would want us to keep going with the podcast. Every Sunday morning, Cindy would come over with Dad and my daughter Grace and my wife Ling. We would come over to our house. We would sit on the porch and talk about life, and then come in and in the kitchen do the podcast and then have lunch after. So it was great that the family got together for almost 250 weekends and be able to share times and remembered stories. For Cindy's memory, we're going to do a interview on the Grapevine show that we did with Jerry Cheevers. Now, the Cheevers and the Cherries have been friends back into the 60s when Dad played in Rochester with Jerry Cheevers. And his wife, Betty, and my mom, Rose, became very good friends. And then in Dad's second year of coaching the Bruins, Jerry Cheevers came back from the WHA and played with the Bruins. And so, of course, Mom and Betty, Cindy and I, and Robbie and Craig Cheevers all met up again in Boston. And Cindy always likes to tell the story of the first year. Mom and Cindy went into the wives' room. And if you don't know what the wives' room is, it's kind of an area where the wives and girlfriends all sit before the game and, would have some drinks or something or get ready before they would go out to the seats and before the game would start. At the Boston's wives' room at the time, there was two levels. There was kind of where you walked in, there was a bunch of tables, and then there was a nice little upstairs area that had like a fridge and a little kitchenette, and all the sandwiches would go upstairs, and that's where some of the big stars' wives would sit, and the rest of the wives would sit downstairs. So a lot of the wives were feeling uncomfortable to go upstairs to get the sandwiches or to get drinks with the superstars' wives up there. So Mom and Cindy didn't know what to do. They felt a little uncomfortable. It was Dad's first year. He was kind of a rookie coach, and these were established NHL superstars. So Mom and Cindy didn't like the whole situation, but they just kind of lived with it. Well, then the next year when Jerry came, Betty and Mom straightened everything out, that the sandwiches stayed downstairs and the drinks stayed downstairs, and Betty started to set some rules and Mom started to set some rules. And things started to feel a lot more like a family other than almost like a class system. And the other thing that happened a lot was during the Easter school break, the Bruins and the Celtics would both go on long road trips because the Boston Gardens would have the ice volleys coming in. So for 4 years, it would be my mom and I and Cindy, Betty Cheevers and her kids, and a bunch of other wives would go on vacation during Easter break. And they would have a lot of fun. And Cindy was really into animals back then. And, of course, Jerry Cheevers was really into the horses. And he helped Cindy get a job in Rockingham Raceway, which Cindy had a lot of fond memories on. And was a very eye-opening experience to the world of horse racing for Cindy. So in Cindy's memory, we're going to play the Jerry Cheevers Grapevine show. Again, we did 2 shows a night. This was shot in Mississauga, Ontario. And the second guest was Bobby Orr. So Dad talks to Bobby Orr at the start of this Grapevine show. So without further ado, here's the Jerry Cheevers Grapevine show.
Here he is, the greatest hockey player in the world, Bobby Orr. Put her there, Paul, right there. Thank you, Ricky. Jimmy Loftus right here, too. Jimmy boy.
Bobby,
put her right there.
Yep.
Well, you know Cheese.
Play on my team.
Anytime.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Well, Grapes, I got to tell you, I've said it many times, a lot of excitement, and I know he's your type of guy. And any time the tough get going and the rough and the tough, you know the saying?
Yeah.
Jerry Cheevers. Bobby was making me laugh early. He always came through in the clutch. That's what I wanted to say.
And he's the greatest money goaltender of all time. Blue's got the Blue movie. Let's go, Blue, right now. On the Blue. Let's go.
His name is Cheevers, but overachiever might have been more appropriate. Jerry Cheevers, simply put, was outstanding. In 14 seasons of professional hockey, the Boston puck stopper was a veritable Rock of Gibraltar. Cheesy would retire in 1980 with 26 shutouts and a goals against average of just 2.89. The St. Catharines native was synonymous with clutch performances. While the likes of Orr, Esposito, and Busick were getting it done up front, the masked marvel stoned the opposition. He was the final bastion of defense, and with Cheevers between the pipes, the Bruins would capture 2 Stanley Cups. Opposing shooters considered stop a 4-letter word, but it was vocabulary Cheevers lived by, always remembered as one of the very best, goaltending great, Jerry Cheevers.
Puck stopped here. Now here he is, my buddy Jerry Cheevers, right there. Pal, you look good, you look good. You like that? Don't you go away, baby. Right back with my buddy Jerry. Put it there. We've come a long way since Rochester, eh?
An awful long way, Grapes. You only went about 90 miles down the road, but we've traveled around. I should say one thing right now. This year, Jerry Eamon, a great American League player, Don Cherry, an American League player, and myself are being inducted into the Rochester Americans Hall of Fame, and it's a privilege to go in the same year as you.
All right, that's pretty good, eh? Jerry, I gotta tell you. The guy put it in, he says, you're not going in for your playing, he says, you're going in for your coaching. I mean, that hurt, I'll tell you that. I thought you were a good player. Oh, I played in front of you, I was a pretty good guy. I mean, a few times you get hit in the...
You were a good guy.
Yeah.
I can't argue that.
Yeah, not a good player, eh? You're not going to say
anything.
it.
I said you were a good guy.
I could fight, though.
Yes, you could. The greatest fight I ever saw, you and Spider Mazer. I couldn't believe it. That was my first year of pro, maybe my second. You hit each other over the head with the sticks. Yeah. You both in getting stitched up together. I says, I got another 19 years of this to go through.
I think I was about 25. That was a good one. Remember Red Berenson now? You remember the Red Baron?
Oh, yeah. I gone through my whole junior career, first couple years of pro without a serious injury. My wife presented me with a child the night before, a premature child, weighed 6 pounds, very tough night, and I never went to bed all night. And the first shift down the ice, Red Berenson was a great American League player. He comes down in Grapes, and I wasn't sharp that night, and usually when a player come down on Grapes, I felt I had to be sharp to bail us out. And anyway, he danced around Grapes like I expected, and let a routine shot go, and I missed it, and that was the first time I got seriously injured. I lost all my teeth and 40 stitches. And I want to thank you, or else I would have been
that's good.
I would never been a complete hockey player.
Crow made you go back, did he? Joe Crozier?
I got stitched up and finished the game.
Yeah, stitched up, knocked all.
You got benched.
I got benched. Well, what else is new? Remember the next day he wanted you to practice. I go in and you said go in, Grapes, and asked him if I have to practice.
Well, the old Crow, Joe Crozier, we're talking about, our coach, who was a great coach, I thought. He had some funny ways.
Made you go back out and practice. Pitt Martin, another one. I mean, I remember.
That was the safest thing in the world for me, though. I never got hit in practice.
Oh, you're not kidding. We'll talk about that a little later.
Geez.
How about Pitt Martin? That was a scary one, though. I have to admit this one.
That was one of the worst injuries I ever had in hockey. Once again, Pitt Martin was coming down the ice in the American League, and he was about to either go around or through Don Cherry. I couldn't figure out what at the time. And I thought he was going to go around, and I was prepared for that, but he went through him. And I reached out to grab the puck, and my hand slipped out of my glove, and he skated right over my hand. And I think I was out for a good 2 or 3 months there. It was a terrible injury. And
then you had to...
I still like you. I don't know why, but...
what are you doing? Remember you had to go to the Hickok Award thing or something, didn't you?
With my hand, yeah. That was the only reason I was invited, because I was injured.
Yeah, teeth knocked out and everything. Now, where are you living and what are you doing now? I think he's found paradise, by the way, but go ahead.
I'm living in the Boston area, north of Boston. I work for a racetrack, which I love. I also just started recently working for a stable where we buy and race horses at a high level, and I'm very excited about that. And I do the color on Sports Channel for the Hartford Whalers.
Now, what do you love best? And I'm going to throw this one at you. And what do you love best? I know back when you played what you love. You love the horses or do you love hockey the best?
Well, I love them both equal. We'll put it that way. It's they've gone both together with me all my life, and I enjoy them both. It's if I didn't enjoy them, I wouldn't be there.
Royal Ski, what a horse!
You're the only guy that ever jinxed them.
Yeah.
I had a champion horse. Royal Ski had a champion horse, and Grapes, he isn't a horse player or horse bet or anything like that. And this horse should have been 2-year-old champion of the year. He won 7 out of 8 races. And the only day he lost was the day that Grapes bet $50 on it, right?
Said it's a sure thing, and he lost.
I'll never forget that.
Remember, Harry, I couldn't tell you a day of the game or something, and Harry, you tell him day of the game. You won three races in a row, and I told you day of the game, and you won the 3 games, and the day I told you and you lost, that was my fault again. Harry was great for that now. What a team you played in Oklahoma. What a team there, boy. My brother played on that team.
He sure did, and that was a great team. A lot of guys have gone on, John Paul Parisi.
Yeah.
Cash, that was when I first discovered that Wayne Cashman was a great competitor and winner in that team. Who else? But Terry Crisp was coaching in
Glenn
the NHL.
Sather.
Glenn Sather was there. Teddy Irvine. I mentioned John Paul Parisi. Peter Panagapko. That was a lot of fun.
Jean Pronovo, 50-goal scorer.
Jean Pronovo, 50-goal. You're right. Yeah. And well, you got a good memory.
I don't forget. What do you think? I'm a pretty face around here, or what?
You got a good memory.
Yeah.
He wants me to comment on his tie. That's a nice tie, Don.
Thank you very much. Not what you said before. No, you played. I used to, when we get up 6-1, and we did used to get up 6-1, you were in the net. I used to go nuts because I knew we were going to have in a heart attack any time now. But you never cared about your average, eh? It was always the wins. And what was the record? Now, I want you to tell a record that you set in the National Hockey League.
I didn't set any record. The team I played on set a record.
All right, don't give it that one.
We went 33 games without losing. And this is no kidding.
Of course, you had...
Robert was playing at the time. And I can tell you a story about that record. We went 33 games without losing, and we had first place cinched, and we were getting ready for the playoffs, and our coach, Tom Johnson, decided that he'd rest Bobby Orr and Phil Esposito the night that the streak was broken, and it was 4-0 at the 10-minute mark.
Well, that sounds like Tom.
Yeah, right.
Do you remember that game at Philly, that overtime game? Remember that? That was...
it's like 2 overtimes.
Yeah, 2 overtimes. It was 10-1. I think he had about 60...
10-1.
10-1. That's when it ended. Something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, not 10-1.
I know we missed last call.
And it really bugs me. You couldn't get to the bar in time, right? That really bothered me. But you remember that game? That was an unbelievable game.
Yeah, and it was an up and down game for 2 overtimes also. And we're lucky. I think Terry O'Reilly scored the winning goal.
I put him on.
But it was your win, no doubt about it. That was one of the fun hockey games I played in too, because anytime you win in, we've all won and lost in overtime, but it's really nice to win.
It was nice to beat Philly too, because remember they were the guys that put you out, and they were the Broad Street Bullies. Did we show those guys the next 3 years?
We certainly did. Yeah.
I didn't know what was going on when I got there, how much you guys hated Philly. But remember the Canada Cup back in '76? That had to be one of your favorite times. Tell us about how you drove the coaches nuts.
Well, that was '76, and as we all know, Bobby played in that series, and all the best players. And I could never make a team like that. I was asked to go, and you have to practice hard, and I was not a great practice player, as Don
That's
knows.
putting it mildly, but go ahead.
Right. And Don knew that, and he was one of the coaches, and I'm sure that Don wanted me to play and understood me. But the other coaches, Scotty Bowman and Bobby Crum, I think it was.
And Al McNeil.
And Al McNeil, they just couldn't believe that this guy, I could ever be there too. And he
used to steer the pucks into the net for the...
And Don always backed me in all their meetings they had, and he must have had meetings every day. And Bobby Crum, he just couldn't take it anymore, so he decided to practice tip-ins with me in goal. And I just fired my gloves and sticks at him and walked off.
Yeah,
I couldn't take it anymore.
But
and needless to say, I went through the whole series as the backup goalie, chief cheerleader, and never got in the game.
That's all right.
But it was a lot of fun.
You better believe it. This is a great Canada Cup this year, wasn't it?
I missed a lot of the games. I was away, but from what I saw, I really enjoyed it.
Remember the game when Sittler set the record in Toronto? What did he get, 11 points or something like that? You were the backup goalie.
That was my first game dressed when I come back from Little Hockey. Yeah.
Poor Davey Reese.
Yeah, Davey Reese was a nice guy, and
I think
that was his last game.
Yeah, that was his last game he ever played. I looked down at him. It was about the 8th goal, and I looked at Jerry, and I went like that to Jerry. He put a towel over his head and went down like that. But you come back the next night, we shut out Detroit. I never forgot that. Tell us about the WHA. A lot of strange things. You played for Cleveland, right?
Yeah.
Besides getting the big dough there, a lot of strange things went on there.
Well, I love the WHA. Really, it gave me the opportunity to meet a lot of different players.
You played great against the Russians in that series. You're the most valuable player.
Yes, I was. It's against the goalie had to be that there, believe me, to survive. But I met a lot of new friends in the WHA, and it was a different competition. It's usually in NHL, most practices were optional, and I think of the first couple of years, the games were optional for a lot of players. First game, I'll never forget. We went in there, and I walked in, and I went in to have my usual in between period cigarette, and 4 guys were having hot dogs. Right? I said, this is going to be somewhat of a country club feeling, but it was maybe, but not really. It served a great purpose in hockey, the WHA, because there's some franchises. But I should tell one story that Sports Illustrated come to me after the first game of the WHA, and Cleveland did play the first game, and they said, what is the big difference in the WHA and the NHL? And I said, well, from where I see it, being a goaltender, every time I look and see number 4 going up the ice, it's not Bobby Orr, it's Ralph Hopovari. And Ralph was a very good kid, played in our team, tried very hard, but obviously he wasn't a Bobby Orr. And his parents sent letters to me.
Oh, they were after you and everything. They pick it up, don't
never
worry.
said, you try to be funny and it jumps back at you.
Yeah, listen, you remember how we used to go a little bananas when somebody had touched you or any of our goaltenders. I mean, the team was paranoid if you touched, and I'll just show you a little clip with the Flames. You come out and Willie Plett run at you. Blue, you ready? Run that clip now and show you how we acted. Watch. You almost could kill here. Watch. Look at 5 guys jumping. Guys jumping over. Watch you sneak out around here. Let me out of here.
I didn't sneak out. I was out.
Yeah, I tell you, boy, you never touched our goalie. Look at this high stick, and what a great team. I'm telling you.
Are you going with that?
Yeah.
That was a team with Jonathan and Wenzik and all our guys. Secord, a very tough team. And I hurt my knee a little bit and I was a little cuckoo there. I got my bell rung. And Don wanted to take me out, and I said, there's no way I'm coming out of this game. We're behind that game, as a matter of fact, 5-1. I want another crack at this Willie Plett. And I know I couldn't lick my lips, believe me, but I wanted another crack at him. About halfway through the third period, it came up, and he come in front of the net, and I leveled him with a 2-hander, and he fell into the boards. And I said, well, I did what I wanted to do. Now I have to stick up for what I did. And I was actually going to go with him, believe it or not. I don't know what happened, but I was going to go with him, but I had the stick in my hand. You know, you got to be honest. And I said, I made my bed. I got to sleep in it. And right there, I heard this breathing behind me. And it was John Wenzik, coming off the bench. And I was like the bullfighter, went, Olay, and let him go right at it. But I remember that game, too. It was...
I never forgot. I'll tell you. We chased Plett right off.
That was one of the worst things I've ever seen. It was in the Atlanta, the Omni in Atlanta, and when all this was all over, what we just witnessed there, Plett was behind the boards hiding. I couldn't believe it, in his own rink.
And hid behind in his own rink. Remember George Plimpton?
Oh, I loved him. He's a great man.
He was. Remember Seaweed was. And you guys scared the life out of him, the poor bugger.
Yeah. Well, George Plimpton wrote a story on the Bruins. Poor what?
Bugger.
He's a fighter in England, isn't he?
Oh, yeah.
So,
Hubner.
Oh, okay. So, Plimpton wanted to do a story in the Bruins, and for some reason he got to room with this great character we had, Jim Petty, called Seaweed. He was going to play goal in an exhibition game in Philly for 5 minutes, and Don put him in with Jimmy Petty, who was a great favorite of all ours, right? So we used to go to this bar similar to the Grapevine here and hang out after practice. And Cash and I led the troops in there, and he wanted to be all part of it, so we got in there. And one thing led to another. We had a very good session that night, drinking beer. And in fact, we had the lacrosse sticks out playing lacrosse in the middle of the bar. It was an awful evening.
Just a normal night for the Bruins.
Normal training camp evening, and Plimpton said I had to leave. This is 1:45. We knew that Don wouldn't be checking curfew that night for whatever reason. And
I was afraid what I'd find.
Yeah, right. And he says, I got to go home because young Jim Petty is a rookie, and I don't want to wake him up and bother him. He's trying to make the team. And we said, don't worry about it. He says, no. So he left. So he snuck in, opened the door, crawled into bed, never made a sound, and was peacefully sleeping. And about 5:30 in the morning, in comes Seaweed Petty. Hi, George. How are you? And everything like that. But George continued on.
And I'm the coach. Can you imagine that? I didn't know that was going on.
We had George played a period for us, stopped a penalty shot by Reggie Leach.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure it was in the satchel or straight up, but it was a good effort. And he went in to get undressed, and then we had the biggest brawl in history of hockey. It was really probably an insult to hockey too. And poor George, who wanted to do anything to write about it, was in the restroom in the shower. Right, that was.
It was the biggest disappointment of his life.
Right.
Okay, we got more. I'm going to ask him about the way he used to practice. Don't you go away, Jerry. I'll be right back. Put her there, pal. Right there. Now we're going to get into the way. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask about if you liked coaching, Jerry.
I enjoyed it. For most part of the time, I enjoyed it. It's when you win, it's a great feeling. When you lose, you absorb 20 bad feelings, and you take it home with you, too. That really bothered me, too. But I must say one thing, honestly. I learned everything I knew about coaching from Grapes. That's why I got fired.
Jeez, I was all choked up. I never... Oh, same guy fired us.
Same guy fired us, too. We have something in common.
Yeah, same guy. I never brought the game home with me. I left it in the bar, to tell you the truth. Practice, the worst practice player in the world. He used to steer the pucks into the net. You remember that? Remember the time I almost had you going there once?
Well, if we ever got divorced, it would have had to been this time. We had a week off. We had won first place in a bye, and Grape said to me, "You don't have to come for practice for the whole week." And I said, "Well, I got to practice. I'm coming." He says, "No, don't go," because he knew I'd ruin practice. The players hated me in practice and everything. And I said, "I'm going." He says, "No, I don't want you there till Friday. Take a good skate and go play the games." Anyway, I showed up. We warmed up a little bit, and he called all the players to center ice, and he said, "You get down the net." And obviously, we were going to scrimmage, and I heard him say something to the players, and there was a little chuckle and all that. And I really didn't apprehend what was going on. Then all of a sudden, Peter McNabb come down in a breakaway, and Peter's a pretty good goal scorer, and he hit me in the stomach, and he raised his arms. And it didn't hit me yet. Then Terry Riley came down, and Terry likes to deke and dive, and he shot into my pads and raised his arm for a goal. And I still couldn't figure it out. Then finally I figured out that Cherry told them at center ice if they hit me, it'd count as a goal in scrimmage. I threw my gloves and stick at him. It was the closest we came to divorce.
Yeah, that's true. But, I remember the time I left you in Buffalo. Remember that time? It was one of the genius move on my part.
Well, we had a big game in Buffalo on a particular evening, and we played somewhere else the night before, and he was going to play the other goaltender the night before, and I was going to play the game in Buffalo. So he sent me by myself a little early the night before to get a good rest, and that's really a bad play in his part. And I got in there, and I thought I'd go have a couple of beers, and got paralyzed, needless to say. Never stopped a puck the next night. We got beat 8-1.
Yeah,
that was the end of that
nice
system.
move on my part.
Yeah.
How about the story about Bobby in Oakland?
Oh, that was a great story. This is Bobby is, we all know, and even his teammates, he was the greatest player to play the game, and we're killing a penalty. Eddie J was playing goal that time, and I was on the bench and was right next to the Oakland Seal bench, and Bobby was killing the penalty, and he liked to rag the puck at all, and he got it, and he circled our net, went up the right boards, and one of the Oakland players hit him and knocked Bobby's glove off, but he still controlled the puck, went down inside their blue line, circled around, back around our net. No one could believe what he was doing because he really gave up an opportunity of a scoring chance. Circled our net. The Oakland players started picking him up. Finally, he come bolting down the door, the right side, stopped, picked up his glove, went in and scored a goal. I looked up, and our bench was crazy.
It's a true story.
But the best part of the story was, even though our bench was in a frenzy, the Oakland bench was up cheering too, so I knew we were in good shape.
Tell us a quick story about Bobby Hull, the way he used to come down and blast him. Got to be quick,
Oh, my God. Thank God I had 3 or 4 sets of underwear. I never got through the games. He was scary, Bobby Hull was. And we were 2 men short. And I always told my defenseman, like Bob or someone like that, I'd say, you take the short side, I'll take the long side. So the Hull was on the point with Pierre Plot on the other side. He'd pass it to Hull, and I'm supposed to take the middle of the net, and the defenseman, say Bobby or Teddy Green or someone, would take the short side. But I always cheat a little bit, and I'd be right behind them. And he shot one, and I always left my stick there. I could handle my stick pretty good, and I tipped it off the glass, went back to Plot, back to Hull again. And he walked in a step closer. And finally, the defense is moving away. To make a long story short, this happened 4 times. The 5th time, I was tumbling over my defenseman in the corner of the ice of the rink, and he hit it. He had to get it high because I was stopping all the loans. He put it right through the crossbar, through the press box.
And you weren't in the net, he told me.
I was in the corner.
Put it there,
right.
Jerry, boy, way to go. You weren't there. This guy, I won Coach of the Year, and this guy won it for me. Put it there, pal. Blue, take us home right now.
Well, thanks for listening again, and thanks for everybody who sent out their thoughts and prayers. Needless to say, Cindy will be dearly missed. I miss her every day. And all I can say is Godspeed, Cindy. It's time to be at peace and rest.